January 30th, 1933, a cold winter morning in Berlin. A 43-year-old Austrian-born man and who had failed art school, slept in homeless shelters and lost every election he'd entered, walks into the presidential palace. He walks out as Chancellor of Germany, and within 6 months, Germany, a democracy of 65 million people, will have ceased to exist. What happened? How does a democracy hand itself over to a dictator? This is the story nobody tells you about how Hitler actually took power, and it starts not with violence, but with a broken country. To understand how Hitler rose, you need to understand how broken Germany already was. World War I ended in 1918 with Germany's total humiliation. The Kaiser was gone. A new democratic government, called the Weimar Republic, was created almost overnight, with no real tradition of democracy behind it. Then came the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was forced to accept sole blame for the war, to pay billions in reparations, to lose territory, to gut its military. Germans were furious, and they didn't blame the Kaiser. He had already fled. They blamed the politicians who signed the peace treaty. They called them the November criminals. It was a lie, but it stuck. Now add to this a decade of economic catastrophe. Hyperinflation so severe that a wheelbarrow full of cash couldn't buy a loaf of bread. Then, just as things started recovering, the 1929 Wall Street crash hit. Unemployment in Germany shot to 30%. Over 10,000 businesses closed every single year. Wages collapsed by nearly 40%. People weren't just poor, they were desperate, and desperate people look for someone to blame and someone to save them. Adolf Hitler had founded the Nazi Party and the National Socialist German Workers' Party in the early 1920s. In 1923, he tried to seize power by force. It failed completely. He was thrown in prison, but prison gave him time. Time to write, time to plan. And when he came out, he had a new strategy. Don't destroy democracy from outside, infiltrate it from within. The Nazis stopped being a fringe gang and became a real political party, with branches across Germany, a youth wing, rallies, newspapers, and the most sophisticated propaganda machine the world had ever seen. His propaganda chief, Joseph Goebbels, understood something most politicians didn't. People don't vote with their brains, they vote with their gut. So, the Nazis didn't sell policies, they sold emotion, fear, pride, rage, hope, and crucially, they never stopped campaigning. While other parties showed up at election time, the Nazis were present every single day. In your neighborhood, at your factory, at your church fair. By 1932, the Nazis were the largest single party in the German parliament, the Reichstag, with 37% of the vote. But they still didn't have a majority. Hitler still wasn't in charge. That's where the backroom deal that changed history comes in. Germany's aging president, Paul von Hindenburg, a WWI war hero who personally despised Hitler, had refused to appoint him chancellor for over a year. But Germany's conservative politicians were in a trap. They couldn't form a stable government. 3 chancellors had failed in 12 months. The country was ungovernable, so they made a calculation. Appoint Hitler as chancellor, surround him with respectable conservative ministers, control him, use him as a puppet to win over his voters, then push him aside. It was the most catastrophic miscalculation in modern history. They thought they could tame him. They could not. On January 30th, 1933, Hindenburg gave in. Hitler was sworn in as Chancellor of Germany. That night, Goebbels wrote in his diary, "It is like a dream. The Wilhelmstrasse is ours." They had no idea what was coming. What happened next happened shockingly fast. February 27th, 1933, the German Parliament building, the Reichstag, burst into flames. A Dutch communist was found at the scene. Hitler seized the moment. He told Hindenburg this was the start of a communist revolution. Germany was in danger. Hindenburg signed the Reichstag fire decree, suspending civil liberties, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, all gone, overnight. Within weeks, Hitler pushed through the Enabling Act, a law that gave him the power to pass laws without Parliament's approval. To pass it, he needed a 2/3 majority. He got it, partly through intimidation, partly because politicians genuinely believed the crisis required it. From there, it moved like a machine. April 1st. Boycott of Jewish businesses. April 7th. Jews expelled from the civil service. May 10th. Book burnings across Germany, literature, science, art, anything that challenged Nazi ideology burned in the street. July 14th, all political parties except the Nazi Party were banned by law. 6 months, from chancellor to absolute ruler. And all of it, technically, legal. Here is the most unsettling part of this story. Hitler did not storm the gates. He did not shoot his way to power. He used elections. He used laws. He used the fears and frustrations of ordinary people who had suffered real hardship. The people who put him in power thought they were making a practical decision. They thought they were in control. They were wrong. The lesson of 1933 isn't simply about one evil man. It's about what happens when institutions weaken, when people lose faith in democracy, and when those in power make deals they think they can control but can't. Democracies don't usually die in a single violent moment. They are dismantled, piece by piece, using the tools of democracy itself. And that is a story worth understanding. If you made it this far, you already care more about history than most people. Subscribe to Just History and hit the bell because we cover exactly these kinds of stories, the ones where the real truth is stranger and darker than the headline version. Next video, suggest your next topic here. You won't want to miss it.